retreat at 1745. Mail call is a breather at 1900, following evening chow, but we don't have any time to answer those letters yet, for if the course is to be finished 2 weeks ahead of the regular basic schedule, the working day must go on long after supper. Back to the books again for an evening class. We soon realize we're here for only one thing, training. After 2100, we can do what we like, except leave the area. Those that can stay awake usually go to the PX for candy, or 3.2 beer, or just to shoot the breeze. Or it may be our only chance to catch a haircut. We won't get our first pass until we've been in camp 2 weeks, and then it's good only for weekends. This goes on until tattoo at 22:30. Some of us prefer a little bedside reading before taps, but no one feels like burning the midnight oil after a day in an OSS training area. From here on, we disregard the calendar. The training program moves so fast that we forget the time of day and the day of the month. Firearms, this M1903, also the carbine and the Garand. Nomenclature, assembly and disassembly, care and cleaning, stripping the piece. Firing positions with the hasty sling, the loop sling. Getting to the ground quickly and in position for uninterrupted firing. Too late might be forever. First a dry run without bullets to get the feeling of the rifle. Then we spend a whole day on the 200-yard target range. Prone, kneeling and standing positions. The .45 caliber pistol. The idea is to be able to do this blindfolded. While learning to handle it, we find out that like everything else GI, there is one best way of using basic weapons. That is the way which will bring swiftest, surest destruction to the enemy. This campmate of ours isn't acting. He's too busy for that like the rest of us. But we think there's something in his face that expresses the way we all feel about our training. Queenie really needs somebody to look after the kids, for she's a war worker who puts duty to her country before her family. But when she hears a hike being planned, she decides to follow us anyhow. It seems that we are about to find out what it really means to be a foot soldier. Queenie supervises the drawing of rifles, bayonets, pack carriers, shelter halves, raincoats, mess kits, and helmets. It's called a light pack. We won't be soldiers until we know how those helmets and rifles feel after we've carried them 10 miles or so. After about a mile of warming up in normal cadence, the pace is stepped up with the familiar command, double time march. Snafu. The files then spread out into the safety of extended order formation. Queenie is still up in front. And at last rest, a smoke, and a chance to shift the weight of our packs are all we want. But don't get too comfortable there, Joe. Just as soon as it gets really restful, it's going to be hut 2, 3, 4, and hit the road again. Back at camp, Queenie has skipped. But speaking of dogs, here are a couple of sore ones being inspected for blisters and other sources of infection. That foot on the right carries about a size 15 shoe. And while we're on the subject of inspection, all of us get a formal once-over in our cabins every Saturday morning. This is one of the few occasions when we shed fatigues during our stay in the area. No long-haired Sampsons here. Uniforms must be properly cared for and correctly worn. Equipment must be kept in good condition and ready to go so that there'll be no fumbling when the call comes to get moving. In spite of all this concentrated program, we are not merely getting a theoretical soldier's training. We are living it, learning it, and taking part in every phase of it. After intensive study of demolitions, we set booby traps of various types which we ourselves can improvise. Each trap has a small charge of TNT. The pull type for catching souvenir hunters. The same type filled with shrapnel. The pressure type, which detonates when stepped on. The hand grenade, disguised. One of the boys, temporarily assigned the job of sapper, fails to detect a fatal wire. In training, he will get a chance to be more careful next time. In battle, he could have made only one mistake. This proves that soldiers as well as sailors need to know knots and lashings. They learn how to tie and when to use basic knots. Hey, Joe, it's the bitter end of the rope, not of you. Camouflage prepares us OSS GIs for a grimmer game of hide-and-seek than we have ever known. We don camouflage suits designed for the region we are to operate in and attach leaves found in the locality. We drape our weapons with mottled cloth strips called Osnaburg to match the color of the landscape. The instructor makes us up with suitable war paint. Half our group goes into the woods to hide. It takes very little vegetation to provide effective concealment if you are properly camouflaged and follow the rules. The rest of us follow later to try to detect their presence. Whether you're hunter or hunted in this manhunt, the soldier who sees first shoots first. They say the exercise of eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. We exercise it in interior guard duty. After a sentry shows how it's done, we practice walking post, challenging, keeping our man at a distance and covered until we find out whether his identification is okay. When the weather is good, the instructor uses the outdoor classroom for such subjects as compass and map reading. Maybe some of us remember boxing the compass from Boy Scouts, but azimuths are new. As he explains, we come to regard the compass as a sort of third eye. We realize that a lost soldier is practically a dead soldier. Learning to find our way becomes a science as we learn resection. The instructor follows up his lecture in theory by assigning a map problem to be worked out on a compass run. Sometime later, no paths, no roads, no familiar landmarks to guide us. We must reach our objective solely by compass and map. We stop to take a bearing. Hours later, most of us have finished, but a few are still trying to find their way in. Hurdling on the obstacle course, the toughest test of our physical condition. One way to get across a stream where speed and balance count. Rope swing off the ladder tests arm strength and sense of timing. A slip off this two-rope river crossing will pitch you into hidden rocks. The scaling wall takes most exertion. We literally have to keep out of each other's hair, pulling ourselves up, over, and down the cargo net. The next time we see a net like this, it may lead over the side of a ship into a landing barge. A time comes near the end of training when all of us are on our way to a final attack problem. One group on the offensive, one on the defensive. To succeed in solving either side of this problem, we will have to put together what we have learned in all the subjects of our course, each taught separately with hours of explanation, practice, and drill. The night before a dawn attack, only the NCO in charge knows where we are going. Our bivouac is at a spot picked for security. Tents are pitched. Each of us is assigned his part in the plan. Tent mates dig slip trenches for protection against air attack. Guards ring the encampment. The leader checks on a map the position of the bivouac in relation to the territory planned as the scene of the dawn attack. He takes cover under a shelter half while using the flashlight as a precautionary measure to protect the secrecy of our position. We try to sleep. The sentries watch and wait, but not for long. The attack problem begins. This is the H hour of our course in basic training for OSS men, trying to get across that field to our objective alive, trying to remember instructions. Crouch, don't bunch up. We might be a field patrol advancing ahead of a battalion or regiment to take a position and hold it until the main force comes up. While we are protected in a wooded ravine behind our point they creep cautiously ahead to give the signal for an advance across open terrain. We lay down a smoke screen with grenades to cover the attack. The advance guards give the command gas. And signal us forward. Two enemy tanks, which have to be knocked out before we can advance further. Bring up rifle grenades. Bring up the bazooka. some of our men move up to finish off the crew of the other with hand grenades. With the tanks out of the way, our riflemen can proceed with their mission. A small-scale operation compared with those in regular Army camps. Yet step by step, all the skills and drills of our 4 weeks' training have been building up to this point. The outcome of this particular operation is not our main interest here. What we want to show chiefly is how a problem of this kind sums up the basic principles we have learned. It is a review, a testing in action of what we have gained from classwork, theory, camouflage, conditioning, footwork, hand-to-hand combat, forced marches, scouting and patrolling, drilling, indoctrination, obstacles, marksmanship, tactical field training, manual of arms, chemical warfare, and that's it. After being put through the equivalent of 6 weeks of Army basic military training, streamlined to 4, we go back to our respective branches of OSS from the training area, prepared to do our part as soldiers as well as specialists in any future assignment.